The ratings are in, the reviews are in. We're not AEW, but we are all in on the Raw Netflix debut today on the BTE podcast. Hello, wrestling fans. I am the Zeitgeist, your former multi-time EWA World Heavyweight Champion, alongside Greg the Mayor Maker, joining us from Kansas City, the Midwest, the heartland. I am here in New York, my least favorite place on earth, but here I am to bring to you another episode of the BTE podcast, being The Extreme, a backyard wrestling story. But today, we're not telling backyard wrestling stories. Today, Greg and I will tag team to bring to you our thoughts, our opinions, our fake insider information on WWE Raw Netflix debut. Greg, what do you think? You know, we have a lot to talk about because there's just, it is a big moment. And you were just saying to me, it's like, it was fun. And I agree. I think it was fun. But like, you know, overall, you know, what's your takeaway?
I think it was a lot bigger deal than what we actually realized. And it really didn't click into my head how big of a deal this was when Triple H took the microphone and what he said was, this is the first time in the history of Raw that we are watching it globally. Because in Raw, it's, even in this country too, maybe not anymore, but there was a time where they would tape it and they would air it. So it wouldn't air in England at like 3 a.m. You know, it would air the next day. You could watch it, get the spoilers if you wanted to, avoid them. It's at the point now, it's like the Super Bowl. Like the Super Bowl airs at about what? Maybe 1 in the morning in England. It starts around 1 in the morning, I'd say. You can watch Raw live now at 1 in the morning with everybody else and be a part of that. And I think that's big. Obviously, it's going to be American and North American centric. But this whole idea of a global community, I think that's kind of what they're going for here live. And I think that's what we saw on Monday night.
And it's cool to kind of hear that reflected in, you know, the commentary, and you hear Michael Cole talking about, you know, and tonight, and depending on where you are, the morning, the afternoon, and like, you know, having the injecting that awareness of, hey, we're talking to potentially, you know, people all over the world is a different, it's a different vibe for sure for wrestling. And they were live in the Intuit Dome in Los Angeles at a sold out arena. And it was a really cool arena. And I kind of want to like talk about that a little bit. That was one of the things that caught me that I really liked about it was the presentation. Like you said, like Triple H coming out on the mic in the beginning, like that reveal of Triple H was kind of hilarious. Where like he had like the black drapes around him and he's just standing in the center. I always love those like little things where it's some just wrestler, you know, hiding under the ring for half of the show. Or like
I also just learned recently how they do the thing with the guy under the ring that comes out during the match. It makes complete sense, but we'll talk about that at the end.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I think that was pretty good. I thought the intro was good. And I think that's the biggest deal here is that it's now a global audience. It's now on a streaming service. Let's face it, the media landscape is changing. It's going online. It's going long term. People aren't turning on their TVs. There's not much communal watching. If you do look at the highest rated network or any television programs in America, the top 100 every year, 97 of them are football games.
Yeah.
Because the only time people are watching is, no, I'm serious, when they're watching sports. So wrestling is a show, but this isn't the deal where Seinfeld is on Thursday night at 8 and it's doing massive numbers. You know, we're not in that anymore.
No. Well, and it's worth pointing out, and it's a very good point that so the ratings has been a big thing, and it's been a big story in like the wrestling, you know, ecosphere this week. And, you know, Netflix, WWE put out a joint release announcing the numbers. And that's kind of interesting for Netflix because they don't always do that. And it's kind of a nebulous thing to know, hey, like, how's that show doing? Like people on Netflix, like they don't know. But 4.9 million views globally. And 2.6 million of that were households in the U.S.
That's pretty good. That's very good.
For WWE, that's definitely good.
In this era, it's very good.
But I will say, and I just wanted to like read this. This is the first line from the press release from Netflix about WWE's debut episode of Monday Night Raw. And they wrote, Netflix and WWE part of TKO Group Holdings, today announced that the debut episode of Raw on Netflix got off to a strong start with the Monday Night program capturing 4.9 million live plus one views globally. I guess they count next day, like within 24 hours, they count streams. But the phrase there that's interesting is the off to a strong start. I feel like that could be a little bit of maybe they expected a bit more, because if WWE is being on Monday Night Raw, like they've been averaging, I think it's like somewhere in the vein of like 1.2 to 1.6 million households every Monday on USA Network, and that's just the US. I think they might have been expecting a little bit more than that.
No, I think they were expecting a little bit more than that. But I also think that a lot of it is just, they got to take what they can get. And you can also rewatch it and all that. I don't know how the Netflix pay structure works. I don't know how the advertising works as far as eyes go. But I would say that's a pretty decent number. I don't know what that would translate to a number in a television market.
Right.
But if you look at the Attitude Era, it was doing 5s and 6s consistently.
Right.
Obviously a different medium at that point. But I think also it's the first one, so you're going to have more watching. The views will eventually go back to where they are at. You add the international, it'll be a little more, and we'll still see the peaks and valleys. I just think with the Netflix deal, ultimately what that's going to do for the company, they're going to be able to do a lot more. They're not going to have to censor like when the crowd is cursing.
Right.
They can do more, I wouldn't call them adult storylines, or even more mature storylines. They could do more edgy storylines, I think. And I think
they can have The Rock come out and curse all he wants.
I think you're going to see a lot of it, as much as it's still going to be targeted to children, especially the live show. I think they are going to get, more of that, Gen X, older millennial that kind of grew up with it back a little bit, trying to watch with some of the stuff like that. Not that you're going to get the Attitude Era, but you're going to get something I think that people over 40 or over 35 at least are going to enjoy, along with, their 10-year-old sons. And I think that's kind of the big thing right there is, you got people with their kids watching this now too. So it kind of connects the generation. So I think that's a good thing as well.
Well, and like, if you look at it, it's obviously the smart move for WWE because, you are limited inherently on network TV or cable TV. Whereas on Netflix, there's growth that's possible. Like you said, like, maybe it's a good number. Maybe it's a little deflating, but it probably will grow, and you can look at streaming in 1-day cycles the way you can for television.
Sure.
And so it's a different thing. It's a different animal.
And this is kind of where we are in technology and in the media landscape. Every 40 years or so, the way information is distributed changes. It just does.
Yeah.
And the people that stay ahead of it are the people that win and the people that make money. I mean, you're seeing this in the political spectrum. We're moving away from these short-term news clips that can be edited. People want to see people talk. People want that 3-hour interview. You're seeing it in, the market.
Which I love. I love that.
I do too. You're also seeing it in, just sales and stuff like that. You don't need to go, hey, here's a 15-second commercial on this show. Go on YouTube and see the product for 10 minutes. See someone using it. We're at that point now where things are moving to more long-term. Not that this is long-term, but on the internet. And the point I have is this is a new medium in technology. If you look at new mediums in technology, the ones who take advantage of it in the beginning, they make the money. I mean, the best example I could give you in the last 30 years is America Online. Look how AOL was on top of it and ahead of the curve. Now, everything that happened when people caught up, sure. But in the beginning, what was everyone using? And my point is if WWE can capitalize on this new format of live entertainment, let's just call it what it is, I really, really do think you are going to see more eyeballs on it and you're going to see it make more money than it has before.
Now, one thing I think that they need to change right away. Like, I like the presentation overall. Like I was saying before, like I like the fact that they were in an arena and like it was a more narrow entryway. The visuals were different. The referees had different referee shirts on. They had our signature EWA ref cam on the ref. They stole it. I'm okay with it. It's fine. But the thing I really didn't like, and I liked the matches. I had a good time watching. Like you said, it was fun. But the one thing I didn't like was that, like, The Rock came out to start, and it was just we didn't get the final boss Rock. We didn't get a character. We got Rock who wanted to thank Netflix for a bunch of shit,
I
and
think I
and they
think
just
that's
like they
just the
fell
deal.
out of story. And like it's the first episode on Netflix. Like I guess it is to be expected, but it took me out of it. It definitely took me out of the experience to like hear the Rock glad handing to the Netflix executives in the skybox.
No, I get it. You're going to see The Rock become a character soon. He kind of just had to do that. So let's move on to the actual show itself.
Well, we had four matches, and the show kicked off with Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa in tribal combat, and it really did feel, besides any of the glad handing, it really did feel like a WrestleMania level event, and they treated it like that in the booking, clearly, because we got clean finishes in every one of the matches on a Monday Night Raw, and that may not have happened ever. Like it was truly, WrestleMania caliber matches. Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa. What did you think?
I thought it was good. I would have had Solo win by shenanigans, but it was a good match. It was a good way to kick it
They
off
had the
because
shenanigans.
fair point. No, but I think it was a great way to kick it off. I think that it's going to be a big one because I forgot what the first match on Raw of all time was. I know it was probably some squash or something.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to kick off the Netflix here. Give people
Oh my
something they
God.
want to see.
Yeah.
The bloodline is what it is. It's still going. We'll see when it eventually tapers off, and it will. But for now, it's pretty hot. You have Kevin Owens coming in there as a heel. Roman Reigns is the face that ultimately Vince was trying to create. That Triple H managed to do.
Isn't that so funny?
Yeah, it is though. It's that long term booking and getting people
Yeah.
there. I think a lot of it too is just not telling people what they should like and letting them choose for themselves.
Right.
I think ultimately, if you do it properly and you do it right, and you don't make people choose, which is what you saw in the Attitude Era, they pick their favorites and you go with that and they lead into it.
Right. It was
I thought
nebulous
that
as to like who was a good guy, who was a bad guy, because everyone just kind of like they still had that sort of, but it was more like, choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
And it was, I will say, watching it, like we had a hot start with the show with the Triple H stuff. They did like the whole package with the history of wrestling and all that.
That was cool,
and,
yeah.
and that was cool. I thought like, oh, that's smart. Like you're introducing yourself to a global audience and maybe people that aren't wrestling fans. So tell the story, right? But I will say like the moment that really like got me going on the show was the Roman Reigns entrance. Like watching Roman's entrance is, for me, it's like that TV show that you really like and you watch the intro to the show, which incidentally for me is Peacemaker. And I always watch the intro to Peacemaker because that's a freaking great intro. But the Roman Reigns entrance is so good. And I got chills. Like it really put me in place. It made me feel like, oh my God, like this actually is a really
I like
big
the
deal.
little red lights they had too on the seats, the dots and stuff.
Yeah.
That was good. It was fun. And I thought that they really, it was a good match, a little higher quality. It probably would be a pay-per-view match, but I like how they gave us those on the first Netflix just to draw you in.
Well, and I mean, it's you're potentially opening yourself up to a whole new world that could be your audience, right? And you want to like really hit them in the face with like, hey, this shit is awesome. And that was a fun match. That was actually my favorite match of the night, I think. As much of a CM Punk mark as I am, I think the Roman solo match was definitely the best in terms of just quality. Like you said, I had shenanigans. Like we had the bloodlines show up, both bloodlines. We had KO and Cody and the whole freaking thing. They got every SmackDown storyline in on that one episode, on that one match.
Pretty much.
But I agree with you. Like I'm shocked that Roman won, and that even more importantly, The Rock didn't attack Roman at all. That nothing really happened. Like it was a clean finish. Roman wins. The Rock comes out, takes over the responsibility of restoring the Ulafala.
All I know is that I love how The Rock in real life is now officially a high chief.
They're really pushing that.
His grandfather was the high chief Peter Maivia, but The Rock is actually a real high chief, according to Samoa.
According to the island of Samoa. And they
Yes.
got all the B-roll that they needed for that one.
I love it. Yeah, no, he's now a high chief, the high chief, Dwayne Johnson.
And I do actually like the touch of them referring to The Rock now often in as the name he received as the High Chief, which I guess is part of the ceremonial sort of acknowledgement of a High Chief. I looked at that as, okay, well, The Rock didn't turn on Roman. You know, he helped him, you know, celebrate the win and you know, put the Ulafala around Roman's neck. Maybe they're moving away from the final boss heel character that The Rock, you know, donned for the WrestleMania build, and they're just moving into something else entirely. It made me kind of think like, oh, they're trying to swerve us again.
I think he's going to be in the Rumble.
The Rock?
The Rock. And I think something's going to happen in the Rumble that sets up his WrestleMania match.
That would be awesome. That is like the Netflix debut. Like they timed it so perfectly because it happened on January 6th, 2025. The Rumble is February what? Like the first Saturday or Sunday?
It's February 2nd. It's the week before the Super Bowl.
Right. So all of the fun, cool, amazing stuff is happening now. So any new fan coming in is getting, you know, the benefit of WrestleMania season. And it's always exciting to think about, oh, like, you know, what could happen? Like, what could they do? And, you know, I think all of us wrestling fans have this in mind of like, well, it's got to be The Rock Roman at WrestleMania or Rock Cody because they got to pay off those like lingering details from the last WrestleMania. But maybe they do something entirely different. Like right now, the fact that everyone's talking about Roman CM Punk possibly being a WrestleMania match. I mean, I don't know how they get there, but it certainly isn't in story right now, so they'd have to do a lot of shit.
I'm very curious where we're going to go with this with WrestleMania coming up, because there's so many directions they could come in. It's just a matter of if they whatever they choose to do.
Right.
And there is one thing, and it was pointed out. John Cena made a very good point when he grabbed that microphone. He was smart enough to realize he had not won a match in 2,000 days. The championship committee, therefore, would not grant him a match.
We have John Cena back, and the first thing he does is what, Greg?
He declares himself ready for the Royal Rumble.
Oh, yeah. The wind up to that was actually great. Like John Cena's promos are definitely one of my favorite things about WWE.
He's incredible. I always liked him. Like I didn't start watching him till I was almost 30. But like when I first saw him, I'm like, oh, this guy's great, you know? And you're supposed to hate him, but it's like as the white meat baby face back then. But like the thing I respect about him is he did such a great job that he comes back now and he's over. It's incredible.
You know, he did an interview recently. I don't know if you're familiar with Chris Van Vliet. He has a wrestling podcast, but like he did that interview and like detailed the plans that they had. And I guess like, I don't know if it was 2013, 2012 to turn Cena heel.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of crazy to think back on that, but they never did it. And I agree with you. I respect the fact that they stuck with the character and that like every kid that was young enough at the time, I'm sure, are like they look at Cena like freaking Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, of course. Right? Well, maybe not Hulk Hogan now, but
hopefully not. Hopefully they don't look at Hulk Hogan like the crowd did on Monday.
We'll get to that. No, but with Cena, I like, and it's cool because it's like he comes out, he thanks the crowd, he knows how lucky, and he's pretty much being honest. Like, look, I might come back and do a few matches here and there, but this is it. This is the last run. You know what I mean?
Is he the only wrestler that's ever going to stick to the declaration that they're retiring, you think?
I don't even think he really made a declaration. I just think he said this is his last full-time year. Because the only one that really he never said it, but the only one that really retired and actually never came back was the Macho Man. He went to TNA very briefly, but that was nothing. It was the Macho Man.
He was busy cutting rap albums and diss tracks on Hogan.
even besides the stupid Saudi Arabia match, which was a payday, Shawn Michaels hasn't come back.
That's true.
At least not in WWE canon
That
either.
that hurt my heart when Shawn came back. It's like seeing bald
Yeah,
Shawn Michaels
yeah.
who like
Well, you
couldn't
know
quite
what?
go anymore.
Yeah, you got to take care of your family. I get it, but no, I see
Hey,
what you mean. I
you
see what
probably
you mean.
got some nice freaking Saudi blood money there.
Yeah, but no, the thing I like about Cena is, and it's good. And then he's corny enough, and then you keep it
Yeah,
within the storyline. It's hey,
yeah,
it's been 2,000 days since I've had a title shot, and I'm not ranked high enough to get one, so I have to buy a lottery ticket,
yeah.
enter the Royal Rumble, and win that. Like that's a hell of a lot more fun than just saying John Cena is entering the Royal Rumble.
Right, right, right.
It's
No,
like
he
give me
played
a
it.
reason.
He
No,
took us on a roller coaster like he did with every promo.
I remember we went to the 2015 Rumble and it was
Oh
Brock
my
Lesnar and
God.
Seth Rollins and John Cena. And John Cena's music hits and the whole crowd is doing the John Cena sucks. John Cena sucks. And then we're like 3/4 away into the match leading to the finish, and the entire crowd is going, and he doesn't move, and the whole crowd is going, this is awesome. So
Right,
it's like
right.
he plays his role
He
perfectly.
does.
You have people like in their late 20s now that grew up with John Cena.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. So someone that is not starved for attention as Rhea Bloody Ripley. And I missed the bloody. They dropped the bloody, and I don't think that's a good move. Maybe it's because Seth freaking Rollins like has the patent on middle names right now, but like they should bring that back.
We'll see. I mean, we did get a title change, which you usually don't see on Raw, but it
Again,
was good to introduce
another
you with
clean
that.
finish,
Do
and
the
for a title change.
do the women's title, put it on Raw, show everyone what that's about, get the ladies hyped up too. I thought that was a good match.
Oh yeah,
It was kind of what we're doing. I don't know where we're going from here, but I think
right.
having a title change on the first Raw on Netflix was a pretty good idea.
It was a great idea. You got to show the parody. You got to show that, as the slogan has forever gone under the previous Vince McMahon era, anything can happen in the WWF. And it did, and it was awesome. It was a fun match. It had all the stuff. The one thing that I thought might happen that not that I didn't think about in the moment because was invested in the match, but I going into the show was thinking, well, this would be the perfect spot for Becky Lynch to
Uh,
make a return because you're going into WrestleMania season, and to be honest, for the women's title, that is like because I don't know what else they would do. Like you said, like who knows where
well,
they'll
what else
go,
they
but
would
like
do is
that's the one thing I could see them doing that's like a WrestleMania caliber match.
what doing like having her come enter the Rumble.
Well, yeah, maybe, but like
'Cause that's probably what it's going to
however they
be.
got there, I would think that right now Becky versus Rhea would still be, even though they just did it last year. I look at that as like a Austin Rock thing. In the women's
Yeah,
division, those are the two most over people you got.
right
Put
now,
them
yeah.
together. Let
Well,
them
right
dance.
now too, I think the whole Liv Morgan thing, her feud with Rhea, she might get the one more at the next pay per view
Yeah,
after the Rumble,
she
blow
deserves.
that one
Yeah.
up, and she had a good run.
Oh
Move her
yeah.
on to somebody else, and I think, yeah, I think with that could work. I think it would be pretty good, and I think the women's division's pretty strong right now.
By the way, who took out Jade Cargill? I actually am shockingly invested in that story. Like I want it to be
We shall
Rikishi.
see.
I think Rikishi took out Jade Cargill.
He did it for The Rock.
Yeah. The Rock is around and Ava doesn't like Jade, so he did it for the cousin. He did it for the cuz. He did it for the oos.
They had a lot of former wrestlers and celebrities there. It was
Yeah.
pretty good.
Dude, the frick like Topanga was there.
Oh, she was there. I didn't see her.
Topanga and the Culkins. I love the fact
I
that
saw the Culkins. Yeah, I
they
saw them.
they shouted out Macaulay Culkin on TV, but Kieran Culkin was there too.
The
Where's the love?
funniest, you know who Bill Simmons is, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He was there, and Nikki Bella did the Nikki Bella dance like right in front of him. Did you see the
I
video? And he's
saw
just trying to be like, "Come on, like really? You're putting me in this position."
Nikki Bella doing the dance. You know what? As she ages, I'd love to see Nikki Bella at 80 years old, like at Mae Young territory, still
Yeah.
doing that dance.
I know you want me. Oh, I hope so. I know that was funny. That was funny. What was the Bella song? You can look, but you can't touch.
Yeah.
You
And
keep dreaming from the stars above.
oh
Yeah,
baby,
the
the
other one
audience
was
has just been treated to a Mayor original right there.
Yeah, really. Well, there you go. No, but it was good. I thought that was good. The appearances were good. I thought that was good. I thought the division's in a good place.
Okay, and by the way, I'm not quite sure why they chose to put the Undertaker in that spot. I mean, it's awesome to like, I
Yeah.
guess give a rub to
As
Rhea
the
Ripley.
American badass.
As, Right. Like of all places to put that, I thought like, okay, I'm not quite sure what we're doing here, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
He was the main event of the first Raw in 1993, so fair enough.
I guess Damien Demento, right?
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think so. Yeah, I think so.
February
Yeah, I think I
2023
watched that
or
Raw.
1993. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Did
think
you
I'm
watch
gonna
that
say
live?
I think so.
Wow.
Not, I think I did, or at least
Okay.
some of it.
I
The
was five
Raw,
years old, so I definitely didn't.
when Raw, yeah, I would have been, God, I would have been like 10. No, when
Yeah.
Raw came out, it was just like, because it used to be primetime wrestling. It was
Right.
just tape matches. It was like, this was tape too, but it's like, oh, what is this? Especially in the Manhattan Center.
Was it that different? Like it got you excited?
Yes, it was because the presentation was different. And primetime would be on really late, so I couldn't watch it. Raw, it would at least be on a time I could watch the first 30 minutes.
Uh,
And it really it's you know what it was? It was them taking it out of the arenas, that big crazy feel, and putting it into kind of like a ballroom, a theater. And that whole thing when I saw and these smaller buildings, if you remember, the early Raws were like in places the size of the county center
right.
and the Westchester County Center for those
Yes.
who are not familiar.
Westchester, New York.
There you go. But no, I think that's definitely what it was. And now kind of we're back to arenas, and I think the presentation here is going to be pretty good.
I don't know if there was stuff in between that, but who really cares anyway? Um, I think the next thing I remember seeing was what's his face? Travis Scott.
Oh yeah, that was fun. I don't even know who that is. He's like
Smoking it up, baby.
I'm gonna show my age here. It's like he's a rapper, right? I'm assuming he's
Yeah.
very popular. I've heard the
Yeah.
name and I've seen him on programming. I couldn't tell you a song, but is that what that is? He like the equivalent of like bringing like Snoop Dogg out in 1996?
I guess I'm not
No.
far behind you in age, and I can't fully appreciate his like cultural relevancy right now, but I will say that he seems to be popular with the crowd. Like a lot
No.
of times, like rappers or
He played
musicians
along with it. He seems to be a fan. I love that,
seems to be a fan, but like a lot of times outsiders come into wrestling and they get booed by the crowds. This
Well,
guy was not booed. This guy
sometimes the
was
insiders get booed too.
sometimes
We're almost there.
That's true. That's true. But no, I think like the effect was had. Also, like he's the guy that he made some theme song for WWE, or maybe several theme songs for WWE.
No,
And the thing that popped for me with him was one, he was smoking it up when he
yeah.
came on camera. Two, he had a new looking hardcore championship on his shoulder that looked pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And he was helping to introduce Jay Uso coming out to yeet all over your faces, live and in living color. Have you been yeeting, Greg?
I'm not a big Jey Uso fan, so I was not yeeting.
I'm a big Jay Uso fan.
I
That
think
guy.
he's a good worker, but giving a guy the title main event is kind of like giving yourself the nickname Hollywood, if you know what I mean.
It ain't no big secret.
Nah, really ain't.
But I just like seeing wrestling that's like resonating with people. And
Oh yeah,
honestly, right now, nobody is more over than Jey Uso.
yeah, no, he
Nobody.
is. The fans love him. It's good. The crowd's into it, and I think that is really good. I do. I'm not a big fan of the guy, but I think that's good for the business.
And honestly, I love the psychology of the match because like this was like a very different match than anything else in the card because it didn't have maybe the same stakes going in. It didn't have the same like it's been built up kind of, but you know, it didn't feel as big as other things. It kind of felt like it was there, and that's fine because you know Drew McIntyre, Jey Uso, let's fucking go. But I like how they worked their way into that finish because the fact that Jey Uso found a way and got
Yeah,
the roll up, you know, just caught Drew, who was going for a
he's,
Claymore, and bam,
he's been
like
doing some of his best work too.
who?
Drew McIntyre.
Oh yeah, I mean mostly on social media.
Yeah.
I love his videos, man. Are you Greg? Are you tweeting a lot about this, or are you part of
No, not
the
really. Not
nation of
really.
people that are making WWE
No,
trend worldwide?
no, I am not that. I stopped with tout.
Anyway, so on this match, loved it, loved Drew McIntyre, but I do like they got to get Jay. Like what struck me is again, Jay is more over than anybody on the roster, including Roman Reigns, and that just speaks to how great the storytelling has been, no matter what members of the EWA will tell you in the WWE, because this guy who you know was just a tag team and identical to his fraternal twin, and just kind of, you couldn't tell him apart from his twin for all these years.
Pretty
This
much.
this dude is the hottest thing in WWE. And so, like, what struck me is I get that I do want to see Roman versus Rock. I'd love to see
I
Rock
want to see
versus
it
Cody.
now. I didn't want to see it I didn't want to see it last year, but
No, that's true. I want to see it.
Roman
Right. No, that's a good point. I want to see it now going into WrestleMania. I want to see those things, but also I just feel like you got to put Jay in the main event at some point, because that dude, I mean, no one is going to get.
It's in his name. He gave himself the name, so now he has to be in the main event.
Listen, man, sometimes some people dress for the job they want. Other people just nickname themselves for the job they want. And I fucking dig it.
Fair point.
Can you dig it? And I do. I just love it. But I feel like you have to find a way to get these people like LA Knight and Jey Uso into actual main events, because like you're like rehashing stuff that's great. Yeah, bro. That I just love that everybody I know will just like mindlessly go with the thing.
I learned a very interesting LA Knight fact last year from about 15 years ago.
Oh.
He was managed at one point on the Indies by Paul Bearer. I am not making that up.
I did hear that. I've totally forgot about that.
We'll talk about that another time, but look that up.
That's awesome. Dude, he's had quite the career. But my point, and I'll leave it here, is just that, every sign points to, man, like these people are ready, the LA Knights, the Jey Usos, the Drew McIntyres. How do you shuffle them into this main event? And I don't know. The card is just, or the roster is stacked is my general point, and it showed on this show. So we have that match, amazing match. The match that I was, of course, looking the most forward to going in, as the punkster that I am, despite my heavy drinking, is CM Punk versus Seth frickin' Rollins. And that was our main event.
Yeah, but something happened before that.
CM Punk main evented a WrestleMania level show finally. There you go.
You want to talk about the Hogan stuff first?
Oh, that's right.
First, yeah.
I how could I skip over the biggest heel on the roster? We just talked about the biggest face on the roster.
Let's just say it came crashing down and it hurt inside.
And that's why you want to order some of that new Hulk Hogan beer to ease the blow, brother.
Fuck, I want some Hulk Hogan beer.
I still
like Hogan. Beer. I don't got a problem with him.
So Hulk Hogan thought he was showing up to Monday Night Raw.
Yeah.
But really, he was showing up to the DNC. And that is what it is, brother.
I got to get my Gatorade. Hold on.
Yeah, hit it. I think Hulk Hogan's biggest crime is coming in at WrestleMania 9 and taking advantage of a vulnerable Bret the Hitman Hart and dropping the leg.
Right? Yeah. So, now we're going to the main event?
Before we go to the main event, actually, one thing the little interlude here has helped me to jog my memory. I really want to talk about one more thing to do with The Rock.
With who?
The Rock.
Sure.
Is The Rock bringing back drinking and driving?
Is he bringing back drinking and driving?
Because that motherfucker is drinking and driving on every show he shows up on. He's whipping people to death. He's calling out mamas, and he's most definitely drinking before and probably while he's driving. And I can only applaud it, I guess, because he's a high chief, and who am I to question the high chief?
I'm just going to say I hope he's not, just for the safety of everyone and just for himself. I hope he's not doing that.
there was a great meme of Cena doing, like, he was in the crowd at something. He was just doing one of these, like, faces, and it's just like, when you see your friends drinking and driving.
Oh yeah, just not a good idea.
Like, how does no one think to like put the brakes on something so that's something that you should get booed for. Boo that man drinking and driving.
Yeah, well, I mean, we live in clown world. Let's just leave it at that.
Oh my god. Well, Doink should make a return. Maybe someone. Time for Doink the Clown to make a comeback. Maybe Dolph Ziggler needs a gig. I feel like Dolph Ziggler would make a great Doink the Clown. In the main event of the first Raw on Netflix in history, global audience, CM Punk is selling the hell out of the beating he's taken in these matches, and he
I
looks
like it.
like he can't walk. And I think he actually is having some bodily function issues here, but
You
I
know
like the
what? I
match.
thought it was a great match. They both hyped it up. They got me for a year. They made me want to see it, and we had a good payoff. We'll see where we go from here. I thought the match was very technically good. It kept me interested. I didn't know who was going to win. I didn't
Yeah.
think it was going to end clean, and it did. And there's so many ways you can go from here, and I love that. And that's, I think, one of the perfect endings to, not a perfect, but a great ending to the first Raw. I do believe that.
Well, and I think it was a perfect ending in a lot of ways because, I think you had to have Punk win because otherwise, I think it's a little bit of a, well, why continue at that point? Seth Rollins is the established guy. CM Punk, in some sense, is the returning guy. So he's a bit of an outsider. And then I think you kind of need to establish his credibility. Just he's not been in front of this audience in a long time. And man, like they pulled the trigger. They had Punk win, and I'm grateful for that again as the punkster that I am.
There you go.
Oh
No, it
man.
was. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good ending. No stupid overbooked shenanigans. Just a wrestling match. Because it ultimately, what I liked about this is, I'm a great wrestler. No, I'm a great wrestler. Well, we both think that we're great wrestlers, but you did this and you left the company, and you're an asshole for that. And well, I only left the company because I didn't like the guy in charge, and it wasn't anything against you. And they built it up so well, and I cared. And that's how you do it. And I always say, when professional wrestling is done right, it's the best form of entertainment because it's ultimately heroes and villains, right and wrong, winners and losers, and sometimes the bad guys win. And the ultimate thing with professional wrestling, which they managed to do, is what's going to happen next week.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate thing. And when all is said and done, that is the most important thing they can do. And I felt after this episode, they did it.
And you mentioned wrestling being a art form. To
Yeah.
quote one of the great EWA originals, Christopher Anthony, Big Daddy Coots, wrestling is high art.
Yeah.
Wrestling is high art. And I truly
It is.
believe that. And, I think that they are two really good wrestlers, but they are both very good and perhaps even better storytellers. CM Punk and Seth Rollins. And, the promo from the week prior Raw between them two to close out the show was really just
Yeah.
off the charts. And they're swinging hard and swinging long, and they're talking about bootlickers and who's at fault. And honestly, in a situation where both both people have good points, right, and you
Yeah.
have two faces, one of those people, I think by the time we get to WrestleMania, could be a heel. And I think this was like laying the groundwork. This
Yeah, I
feud is
think so
laying
too.
the groundwork for one of those two people to have a whole new chapter in their career. And I think that has to be Seth Rollins. Like you could see little inklings of it coming out in the match where he's like calling out to the crowd. They're on the outside and he's like just like, like very taunting heel style kicking Punk in the face. Just like, kind of throwing his boot on Punk's face when he's down on the ground, and he's looking at the crowd and he's like just dogging Punk and asking the crowd to sing his song.
Yeah.
And the crowd like kind of does, but kind of doesn't. And you see a little flinch in Seth Rollins, like, huh, and like the anger of Punk coming back and Seth Rollins trying to, warn people like, hey, this guy's a cancer. He's no good. He's horrible. He's a bad person. He'll ruin the locker room. He'll ruin our industry. And yet the crowd is still behind Punk.
Yeah. Well, we'll
It's
see
gonna
what
be fun.
happens. No, I
And
can't wait.
I think they have a long story to tell, and I really hope that it does wind up being Punk versus Rollins at Mania,
Yeah.
because you could have perhaps in some sense like an Austin Brett dynamic
Yeah.
where the crowd is turning, right?
Yeah.
Like it's teetering. And that's always fun because
Oh,
all that means is that like
the
people
double
care.
turn. I love the double
The
turn.
double turn, baby. It's rare. It's rarefied air, but two people who could pull it off. And I love watching Punk now, just because it's like a lightning rod. And every single thing that they put him in, everything gets jacked up and juiced up like steroids in Hulk Hogan's hand, brother. And like I freaking love it. It was a great way to cap that, and the promo that Punk cut, walking out with the assistance of whatever female announcer that was, but just like cutting that promo like 46 is just a number. 46 is just a number, and he got freaking heated in that promo.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it.
The passion was there. But it's interesting to hear you, Greg, talk about like seeing that first Raw in 1993 and how much like it kind of impacted you. Like you felt the difference, right? Would you say that?
I might be one of the few fans that love the new generation. I love the new generation. I thought it was really good. Yeah. Was it perfect? Of course not. But I liked it. And that's ultimately like when I came into my adolescence. And so, yeah.
Dude, I mean, the new generation, I was, like I said, 5, 6, 7 coming into that era. So I loved Bret Hart with all my heart. I love Shawn Michaels with all my heart.
That's how old I was in the golden age. I was about that age. So I loved Hogan and Macho Man and all them.
The best of times, brother, the best of times. But this has been a fun first experiment for the BTE podcast to go and review some other wrestling that's not us. But we are self-obsessed and we are self-absorbed as the EWA. And we will be back with another episode documenting the history of the EWA, which I can't wait to get up. We spoke with Hollywood Pinto, the founder of the EWA, Christopher Anthony, Big Daddy Coots, Claudio Cacciatore, and myself, the Zeitgeist, to recount how this all happened, how a bunch of degenerates in middle and high school got together to form a wrestling organization, to build rings in their friends' backyards, and to make it all legendary and passionate and fantastic and brutal and disgusting and violence and wonderful, so that eventually one day, 12 years later, the Zeitgeist could come and join all of you fucks. So that one will be coming out to you guys soon, but this has been another episode of the BTE podcast. Thank you, Greg, the Mayor Maker. Thank you to the audience for listening, all 2 of you, and hopefully we'll have 3 of you next time. No,
I got the wrestlers right up here. These are AWA figures from the 80s. These are from the 80s right here.
AWA figures.
Flair, Freebird, Buddy Roberts, Scott Hall, and Kurt Hennig.
Damn. AWA Scott Hall. That's a freaking find right there. Holy shit.
That one isn't even that expensive. But
but it's awesome though.